And we're live. Good evening everyone, we're here for the round 4 Kyalami Sideways GT series, and during the practice round we had a very intense practice round between all the drivers here, and at the moment the lead in the practice was Mike John with his 1:15, and now they're on their way with the qualifying, and at the moment we have Charles ahead with a 1:16.2 and Joe Share with a 1:17.9. But currently everyone else still on the outlap, so they'll be putting in the times and we'll see who will be leading in the qualifying stage. So currently in the lead we have Philip Chan with a 1:15.7, Charles chasing up just behind with a 1:15.8, Nick Swanson with 1:16.2, Chris Lowy with a 1:16.3, Mike John with a 1:16.7, Christian Frick with 1:17, just short off 1:16, Jason just crawling behind with a 1:17.1, Joe with a 1:17.5, and Nathan Garner with 1:17.8. So the qualifying round is about to finish, and they're very, very close, but within tenths of each other.
Attention grid, will all non-essential personnel leave the grid now?
And welcome back. We're here for the round 4 Kyalami Sideways GT Series, and the drivers are starting race 1 with a formation lap. So currently standing in position, we have Philip Chan in first place. We've got Charles in second, Nick third, Chris fourth, Mike in fifth, Christian in sixth, Jason in seventh, Joe in eighth, and then Nathan in ninth. So the drivers are warming up the tires on the track of Kyalami. Kyalami is a 2.5 miles, 4.4 kilometers track. It's the old pre-1960 track of the Kyalami, the more dangerous track, where most of the F1 drivers did lose some of their lives on there. But it's a very famous and fast track for the GT series. So we have Philip in first place at the moment, driving a McLaren. In second place we have a Charles in Porsche. Nick is driving in a BMW Z4. Chris Lowy in a Porsche. Mike in a Ferrari. Christian choosing a different car this time. We're driving in an AMG SLS, when usually he will be in an Audi or the Porsche. Currently in the series we actually have Chris Lowy in first place, leading the series with 98 points. Unfortunately David, so he's the one in second place on the table, has 74 points. He unfortunately can't make it today, so he'll be losing out, and Christian might be taking the second position today, since he's only 6 points away from David with 69 points. And Mike should be climbing up to third of the table because he's at 56 points, just behind on the leaders table. So as the drivers are making it around the track through the Lungkop bend towards the kink, heading towards the straights. So drivers are warming up the tires. Let's have a look at some of the times on here. Okay, so drivers are finally making it into the final corner towards the initial straight, lining up the cars into their starting bays. Okay. Drivers are still lining up, trying to get their position started. Okay, so lights on. Green light. We're on the way for the round 4 of Kyalami GT series for Siders. Oh, and there's already an incident, crashed out for Charles. Losing a bit of traction heading towards the start, and he flew out of the... And as the lead comes around the first corner of the Kerbal corner, And still Philip is still leading the way with the race, and Chris Lowy just 0.3 seconds behind him. See, so Charles lost out for the start. Now he's put back into 8th place. Let's see if he can climb back up into the positions as he did qualify 2nd place, and he lost out 6 places now. So this will be a 1-hour race for the GT series. This is race 1. Okay, so since Charles lost out on the starting straight, must have lost a bit of traction heat to cause him to crash out on the straight, and now he's in 8th place, losing out 6 places from his pole position, 2nd position on the starting grid. So let's see if he can climb up, because it's an hour race. Let's see if he'll be able to climb up onto back into his 2nd place. Christian this time chosen the AMG SLS. It's a bit different from what he usually drives, as he does stick to the standard Audi or Porsche, but with the Mercedes on this track, it's a lot quicker than some of the cars. So for on the straights and the fast bends, he'll be able to catch up with some of the cars. But with the AMG, it's a little bit of fuel consuming compared to each of the different cars. So let's see if he'll be able to manage his fuel whilst he climbs up and chases after the positions. As currently the leading driver in the series, we have Chris Lowy, and he's driving the Porsche. As we're on with Chris now in the Porsche 997, let's see if he's coming up towards, in front is, we have Philip. See if we're able to get past him, as he is 0.1 seconds just behind him. Okay, so the drivers today is at Kyalami. Kyalami has been long considered the center of motorsport racing in South Africa, and it takes the name of a piece of land. It's in its northern border, and it's a local language. It's called Sesotho, and Kyalami means my home. So it's a perfect track for the drivers, as the track is a very fast-paced, fast bends, and it's not a lot of room to overtake, but they have to see if the drivers are brave enough to take out in some of the corners ahead. track conditions today is 27 degrees with sunny spells, and the track condition is very dry for the drivers. So depending on their drive around the track, they can lose a lot of depletion in their tires and cause them to lose some of the traction, especially in some of the series that they've chosen, as the McLaren is very hard to drive with. This traction is very low, particularly. So anything can happen in this 1 hour drive for the drivers. Okay, we're taking it on board with Chris's car at the moment, as he's just 0.1 second just behind Philip Chan, and as he comes around the corner towards the SSs, towards the Le Cooper bend, heading towards the kink. So for the people that's turning in currently, we actually is the round 4 for the GT series. Currently in the lead for the GT series, we actually have Kyalami, which is the car on the screen at the moment, and he's leading ahead of the current drivers by 20 points, 23 points to be exact. As the second driver, if David Webber, he won't be able to make it today, unfortunately, so he will lose out on this drive race today, as he'll fall back behind, and then Christian should be able to take the second place. And Christian currently is in, let's have a look, Christian currently is in 5th place in his AMG SLS. It's a bit different from today, as the SLS is not a typical car he would drive, and he's got to try and tame the beast around the fast tracks of Kyalami and see if he can control it through the 1 hour of race. And currently we're through the first 10 minutes of the race, and the drive currently is all pretty stable at the moment, except for the incident that we had in the first starting straight, as Charles must have locked up or underestimated his car and spun out, and now he is falling back into, he's climbed up into 7th place, as he's fighting to get into 6th now, as he's trying to get past Nathan Gunnett. Let's have a look as he's trying to call through the corner. They're trying to get past him. Let's see if Charles will get past Nathan Gunnett towards the kink, just passing the little coupe bend. Very close. Let's see. Charles is trying to find his way past Nathan Gunnett, but Nathan is defending his line and not letting him any room to get past. And now we're back on the straight, but of course should lose out on speed. Let's see, as the Ferrari is a lot quicker in a straight line. So they're neck and neck heading towards the final corner, and Charles has just gone next to him. Should be able to get edge past from the first corner. So they're barging a little bit, and Charles just got back in front, breaking their lane into the corner. Nathan has been passed, and it puts Charles into 6th place, climbing back up into 6th place from losing out in the first corner as he did spin out, and I think he must have lost a bit of traction. What? Oh fuck, I was. Let's take a back look at the front runner for Philip Chan. Okay, so Chris Lau is 0.4 seconds behind Philip at the moment. Current laps, the last lap that he did was 1.16.6, and Chris is just at 1.16.7. So they're very, very evenly matched, even though the car is a McLaren and a Porsche. But they know the track very, very well. It's all about, let's see who's can withstand the pressure on the track and see who can put it through for the full hour, as we're only entering the 47 minute of the race. Currently in third, we have Nick in the BMW, fighting his way steadily in third, and we'll see as what is his lap time that he's doing. So he's on a 160.7, so he's very, actually he's quicker than Chris Lau in his previous lap. So if Chris makes any mistakes, Nick will be able to snatch up second. Currently racing in third place, we have fourth place. We have Jason Chan in his Lamborghini Gallardo. He hasn't actually done much practice on this track, so he's just still feeling his way through it. And Charles is catching up into fourth place, and he's only a few seconds just behind Jason at the moment. Christian is in the SLS, falling back into 6th place now. Oh, Charles has climbed up into 5th, the last saw. And Charles is only 6 seconds away from Jason. We're on lap 11, and lap 11, and still Philip is still leading the race as he heads towards heads back towards the Lukup bend. And Chris is closing in on to Philip. As you can see, the McLaren is a very hard, tricky car to handle around the corners, as it does lose a bit of its traction if you oversteer it into the corners. So as you can see, he's sliding a little bit as he trying to keep the grip on the car. But Philip is a very skilled driver, as he does a lot of home driving, I would say, as he has a simulation at home. And he keeps it very cool, calm, and collected as he enters back into the straight. And just etching behind them is Nick Swanson in third place. Okay, we're taking the action into fifth place with Christian Frick. See how he's managing the car at the moment as he's in fifth position, just short of fourth, with Charles just climbing back into fourth place now since he had the earlier incident on the starting straight. Okay, he's got 3 seconds ahead of Christian Frick now. So aiming to get back into third as per the C, because Nick is very calm and collected through those fast bends of Kyalami. Just under 2 seconds away from Chris Lowry for second place. Ooh, Christian is getting closed in by Jason Chan. See how the Lamborghini matches with the speed of the monstrous AMG SLS. As you can see, the SLS is far more quicker heading towards the first corner, but the Lamborghini has a better exiting speed for the corners of Kyalami, especially it's much more faster bend. See if you'll close in to him on the second sector of the track as they're heading towards the Sunset Bend, towards the SSS. So today we'll be driving in the Kyalami pre-1980s track, where it's a more dangerous and fast track of the Kyalami. Oh, and as you can see, Christian is locking up a little bit in the corners. He's trying to heading out, and there's a lot of smoke coming from his car up ahead, so let's see if the Lamborghini will be able to catch up into fifth place.
We're actually on the action with Christian Frick as he's getting closed up by Jason. Jason just less than a second up behind him. See where Red's chase up as he's heading towards the SDSs, towards the low slope end. Jason is closing up on Christian for 5th position. As Jason's in 6th at the moment, chasing up Christian. As they head towards the straight, let's see who will be brave enough to head into the first corner, diving deep into the barbecue bend. Heading towards Juicy Sweep. Some of these names are unknown to me because it's hard to pronounce, and heading towards the Sunset Bend. And Christian is extending the gap between them and Jason as the AMG is a bit more power at the moment as but like I said, with the Lamborghini it's better exiting speed, so Jason is closing back up again, just 0.8 short of Christian, and he's actually getting closer and closer. But with Kyalami, it's a difficult track to overtake as it does depend on any mistakes the drivers do make for them to close in the gaps. So as you can see, Christian has just gone off the track, but Jason unfortunately followed him off the track as well. That would have been a good opportunity for him to chase past and get back into 5th position. But as any driver knows, that you can't mimic the driver in front as they make any mistakes. It's always remember to forget that they have a car in front and outsmart them into the corners. But the gap is closed into 0.4 seconds. As Jason's creeping closer and closer towards Christian. Oh. As Jason is getting closer towards Christian, they're actually getting closer and closer towards each other with less than 0.2 seconds apart.
And Christian has pulled away towards the straight, as the AMG does have a quicker speed.
Guys, you've got to tell them the big window's open. Get their eyes, they're just looking down.
So the drivers are heading into the pits for a fuel load, so refuel, so it will change some of the positions. Let's head back into the first place for with Philip. So Philip and Chris is still fighting for first and second at the moment, trying to keep the lead. So it's very, very close between Christian and Christian and Jason. So he just made it out towards just in front of Christian. And the time between Philip and Chris at the moment is 1 second, 0.6. So as if they do enter the pits, let's see who will make it out of pits first, and we should change in the positions. So Charles has made it into 4th place now, and he's just seconds behind, within inches behind Nick. Climbing back up from 8th place. So the lead has taken by Chris now, as Philip is put into a pit change. And now it's 2nd place taken back by Nick, and it puts Charles into 3rd. As Philip is still getting pit change. Okay, so as Philip is exiting the pit, puts him into 3rd place. Chris Lowett in the lead, but Chris has still currently not done a pit change. But let's have a look. Yes, so Chris Lowy still hasn't done a pit change, or has Nick. So therefore they still need to enter into the pits. So Chris is still Nick has popped into the pits, which means that Philip will be trying to crawl back into his second position. And still the only one that needs to do a pit change is Chris, as he's the only one on the drivers that has to do any pit change. So Chris Lowy has pulled in towards the pits lane, and he's going for a pit change with Philip back into second, and he's only around 50 seconds behind Chris. So let's see if he'll be able to pull in a fast lap to pull him back into first place, as the pit change for Chris will take approximately around 40 seconds. So Philip is doing a very, very fast lap. Oh, so okay, so Chris has just finished his pit stop, and he's only a second, 1.8 seconds ahead of ahead of Philip. So it's going to be a very close finish between Chris and Philip as they enter into the 23 minutes left of the race. Let's have a look on the other people on the grid. So we got Charles back in the third. So he climbed back from losing out on 8th place, as he had an incident on the track as he started the race, and he lost his traction and spun out on his starting straight. And now he's crawled back into 3rd place with only a second away from second place. So Nick has fallen back into 4th. Jason has finally made it past Christian due to the pit stop changes, and he's currently in 5th place, and Christian has fallen into 6th. And for the people that's just tuning in, we're in round 4 for Kyalami 40 Sideways GT Series, and this is round 4 in Kyalami. And drivers currently in the standing, we have first place, we have Christian just undertaking his lap 29, should be heading into lap 30 now. And Chris is the current leader in the GT Series with 98 points, so this will be extending his lead if he wins this round race 1, and they've still got race 2 coming up after this one. And Philip is just only 1.1 second just behind Chris Alawi, and Charles crawling back into 3rd place. And Nick just behind him with less than 2 seconds behind 3rd place. Hello there. I can see you commenting on the Facebook. So Christian has fallen into sixth place now, and the reason could be he's driving a different car because it's not really used to the AMG SLS, and because of the different bit changes, it pushed him into 6th as Jason took 5th position. And of course the Lamborghini is a bit better out of the corners than the AMG since it's a lot heavier. Hello. So David is the current 2nd person to be in points in the GT series, so unfortunately he can't make it tonight, but that means that Christian might be able to take 2nd place today on the lead on the league. Depending on what position he finishes in this race and the 2nd race, as Christian currently on the board is at 69 points and David's at 75 points, so it's only short of 6 points, so he will definitely be taking 2nd place today. So David, if you can make it for the 2nd race, hopefully he can still make it in to get some points so that he can stay in 2nd place. So at the moment in 1st place we've still got Chris Lowy in the lead with a 1.4 second gap. The lead changed, the leaders changed after the pit stop change, and Chris kept it through to the last minute of the pit change window to get this ahead. And Charles fallen into 3rd now, well, I mean climbed up into 3rd now, as when he started the race he did lose out on the starting grid, and he lost his traction, crashed out because he was starting 2nd, and he crashed out into 8th. But now he's crawling back into 3rd place with Nick just behind him. So let's have a look at the other drivers on the track. So we're in the last 15 minutes of the race now, and having a look at the lap times done by the drivers. So in the previous lap, the quickest time we done was actually by Nick with a 1:16.2. Christian comfortably extending his lead now with a 3.6 second ahead of Philip, as Christian enters towards the sunset band towards the SS. And Philip is getting closed in by Charles now. And it looks like Charles is trying to fight for the second place. And we're back on. Chris is still ahead with a 4.2 seconds gap now, with a lead. And the closing in from Charles is actually getting closer towards Philip as he enters into the final 30 minutes of the race one. Very incident free from most of the drivers on track at the moment, as they're very disciplined on this track. So Chris is entering to his 36th lap. And thank yous from David messaging me, as he won't be able to make it into the final race, and that means that his points will fall behind Christian's one, and Christian will take second place in the series. And we're back into these coming up to the last 11 minutes, so it's short of 10 minutes mark for the race, and Charles is actually getting very, very close towards second place. So see if Philip will be able to hold his position, as he's only 0.9 seconds away from him. And Charles is closing in onto Philip. As they enter into the second sector of the track for Kyalami, heading towards the Lungkup bend towards the kink. It's only 0.6 seconds away from Philip now for second place. See, would he be able to get back his second place, as he did start the race in second, and because of an incident on the track, as he started losing out on his traction and spun out, and it looks like Mike might be losing some fuel, so he might have to make another pit stop change, as he seems to be losing fuel. So that means that unfortunately that David cannot make it into the race, with Christian in 6th place. Should be able to put him into overall 2nd place on the leaderboard of the league of the GT series. Even though it's in 6th place for him, he still should be able to gain past him. So back into Mike, as he has made a pit stop request, and he's heading into the pit after this lap, as he is only running it with 2 liters left on his car. So back into 1st place with Chris Lowy, as he's leading the race now in with 4-second gap, around a 4-second gap between him and Philip. Luckily he's extending his lead a bit from Charles with a 1.3 second behind, fighting for 2nd place. Nick has fallen into 4th. So the reason being behind that Mike had to take a second pit stop is because he miscalculated some of his fuel load for the pit change, and his mistaken the load that he needed to put on, so he has to take another stop to make it through into end the race. So entering into the last 6 minutes of the race, Christian still in the lead with 3 seconds now ahead of Philip, which means that Philip is closing in and Charles is just behind Philip in 3rd place with less than 1.8 seconds closing. So it will be an interesting finish to see if will these drivers keep composed through the final few laps of the race and hold it till the end. So last lap we had the quickest lap done by Philip with a 16.2. Currently in the race, the one with the fastest lap time done is from Charles for 1:15.8. So Charles has got the quickest lap time in the race currently with a 1:15.8. So let's see if he be able to catch up to Philip and get 2nd place. So Chris is in the lead with a 2.1 seconds ahead of Philip. And Charles is just crawling away from second place as well. So far we had an incident-free drive, as most of the drivers are very consistent on their track. So in the last 2 laps of the race, as there's only 2 minutes and 30 seconds left, and Philip would need a pit change as well. So that means that Charles will be able to catch up to second place unless Philip can hold it on to the last lap with it. We'll have to see, because it might be very, very close. As at the moment he's running on board with just less than 2 laps of fuel left. So it'll be interesting to see if he'll be able to make it through and hold it until the last lap of the race, as we're entering into the last 2 minutes of the race. It's going to be very, very close between them, I guess. As Chris is still leading with a 1.9 seconds gap. Philip has been notified of his low fuel, but let's see if he'll be able to make it and end the race. We'll say that Philip is trying to live life on the edge and make it through to the race. And Chris is actually getting into traffic now, as putting towards Nathan, as Nathan is the bar marker. So Chris has just safely got past Nathan now, and luckily no incident was caused. And I think Nathan was well aware that Chris was behind him, and let's see if he lends the way for Philip to pass as well, as Nathan pulls to the side to let the faster drivers get in front, and same with Charles now. And let's see if Charles safely gets past on the straight back towards the barbecue, back towards the Crowthorne corner. And it looks like Philip will be trying to squeeze the last drop of every fuel he has to make it through into the last lap of this race. And it does look like Chris will be winner of race 1. Let's see if he'll be able to keep it composed for this final lap, as he also will be running low on fuel as well, as the drivers here has perfectly calculated how much fuel they needed for the last stretch of the race. And Chris is pulling in through the Sunset Bend towards the SS. And now towards the Lee Coop Bend. And back onto the kink towards the straight, and the winner of race 1 is Chris Lowy, the win run of Chris Lowy, race 1, and the lap 46 as he crosses the line, and the winner is Chris Lowy. With in second place we have Philip making it through with only 0.5 liters left for his just through, and Charles in a very good race, back from 8th into 3rd. Very well done to Charles, and Nick taking up 4th. But with the low fuel, I reckon that Philip did get the quickest lap in the race with a 1:15.9. And that is race 1 all done, and we're going to prepare for race 2. So we'll be back shortly for race 3, quick rest, and we'll be back for race 2.
attention grid. Will all non-essential personnel leave the grid now?
And we're to lab with race 2 on the way, and there's a reverse grid from the race shows. Then we have a Nathan in Mike in second, Nathan third, Christian in fourth, Jason in fifth, Nick in sixth, Charles in seventh, Philip in ninth, and Chris in ninth. And we have a car as you can see, the one coming off the track was Christian, switching into the BMW Z4 for race 2, and Jason changed into the McLaren for race 2. So they must have lost their drive with their previous manufacturers, and they changed manufacturers for the second one. So it's formation lap as they're coming around of the bend towards the as they came through the Druski sweep in towards the Sunset Bend.
Hey Jason, have you gone into a McLaren? Yeah.
So we have a chat with Charles to ask what happened during the first incident for the starting race. So the reason was because he forgot to press on his speed limit, so he forgot to turn it off, and that will cause him to spin out and put him into 8th, but luckily he caught up and got him back into 3rd for the race 1. Now we're heading in towards the start of the race 2. The drivers are warming up their tires, keep the brakes and their tires warm. Okay, as drivers are heading towards the kink, towards the final straight, towards the start of the starting grid, and we have Joe in the Audi lining up into the. So hopefully this time the drivers do remember to turn off their pit limiters as the start of the race. So drivers still warming up their brakes and their core tires. So we have 2 Ferraris in 2nd and 3rd for the starting, and Christian has to get back into position as he pulled ahead of Mike as he's in 4th. Jason in the McLaren now in 5th place, and Nick as their drivers head towards the starting grid as they line up into their bays for the start of the race 2. So the light on the way, and we're lights out for race. And as we enter towards the first corner of the race, as I forgot to turn off the speed limit. As we're heading towards the barbecue bend and see who can get through the first corner, and Mike is currently in first with Jason behind him and Philip, and all drivers made it safely first through the corner, and as they head towards the Juski sweep towards the Sunset Bend, And drivers are still very composed and keeping it towards on the track, and no incidents so far. And Mike is still leading the race as Jason is very, very close as he comes towards the bend, and Jason has taken ahead of the race. And Jason is in the lead now. Okay, look. And Chris is in second place, or is it Charles? Charles is in second. So the drivers are all very, very close within each other's, within tenths of each other as they come back towards the initial straight, back towards the barbecue bend. Very, very close between all the drivers as they come towards the first corner. See if there will be any incidents for this. Oh, bit of a bump and grind on the first corner as we see once the drivers coming back through, and there's a bit of a position change, and now we have Philip in second place. And Jason still leading the race in first. A new car that is driving the McLaren, and we have Chris Lowry who are overtaking some of the corners just now and coming a bit off the track. Okay, so we have Jason in first and Charles and Philip battling for second place. Okay, we're taking on car with Jason in first place, and as you can see behind him we have Charles, Philip, and then Christian driving in his new BMW now. Fourth place we have, in fifth place we have Mike fallen in fifth now. So the car change for Christian, he must have got fed up with his SLS, and he's decided to try out the Z4 on this track, but previously he'd never had a practice on this track, so he doesn't know the characteristics of this car as familiar with his usual Audi or the Porsche that he usually drives. So but the BMW is a very nice car to drive. It sticks very well to the road, and the traction is very nice. And let's see how Christian does for this race, as currently he is third on the leaderboard of the league of the GT Sideways Series. But now, since David could not make an appearance on this race, he will be taking second place, depending on what kind of points he gets in this race, but any would count for him and he will get second. And let's have a look back at the front runners. So we have Jason still in first place with a good 1.2 second gap. Oh, and he just cornered off the track as Charles also followed him a little bit off. But closing a little bit gap now, is only just under a second behind him. And we'll see if Charles make it into this race as first place. And as we were mentioning from previous race one, he had an incident on the starting grid as he slipped off the track. It's because he forgot to turn off the speed limiter after the formation lap. Same with some of the drivers in this race, as they forgot to turn off the speed limiter when they were heading back into the standing start of the race, and it caused the drivers to spin out. So now we have third is Philip, and Philip is still trying to claw in his way into second place as he's coming up towards the barbecue bend for the first corner, heading towards the Juski sweep. So with this Kyalami track, is a very dangerous track, as most will know it is the old Kyalami before the renovation in the 90s. And this track is very famous for these fatalities to the drivers that has driven into this track. So as we take a look at, as some of the drivers are heading towards the Sunset Bend, towards the Clubhouse Bend, towards the SS, and the SS is actually had a fatality in the Porsche previously in 1963 by Peter Engelbrecht, who had an incident in this track. Oh, and let's take a look at second place as Charles is edging in towards Jason, and he's only millimeters away from Jason as they head back towards the straight. And let's see, will he be able to keep his composure in the straight and block him off and defend his first position, or will Charles overtake him and get past as they head towards the barbecue bend? It's going to be an interesting first corner to see who will be able to outtake the corner, and Charles has outtaken the corner, and he just not make it past Jason as Jason defended his line, keeping it just behind Jason. Oh, and Charles cut a little bit of a corner there as he tried to overtake Jason. And as they're battling out for first and second, Philip is crawling in back towards second place as well. So if the drivers take each other out, Philip will be able to take through and get past the collisions and get back into first. So let's see how the drivers pan out. So it's very, very close between all the drivers at the moment in first, second and third. So let's take a back view of the action as Jason is feeling the heat from two drivers, Charles and Philip. So if you guys are just tuning in, we actually are in the round 4 Kyalami for the Sideways GT series, and oh, Charles is just actually just getting back towards him, towards the initial straight as they finish off the it's going to be very, very close between the drivers as they come towards the first corner. Oh, and Jason is neck and neck and bumping him a little bit as they come around the first corner, and Philip is enjoying this action between them as the drivers take each other out. Philip will be able to take up the first place. And as you can see, they're less than thousandths of a second away from each other as Jason just slips off the track a little bit, and Charles take in first place as Jason had a little bit of out-turn oversteer from the corner. So Charles has taken first place now, and let's see if Philip will be able to get back in second. And Charles has currently taken the first position, and I was speaking with Charles before the race, for race 1. The reason why he fell back into the grid is because he forgot to turn off his speed limiter as he were heading back towards the starting grid of race 1. That's the reason why he lost from second place on the starting grid into 8th position, as he forgot to turn off the speed limiter and spun out. So but now he is leading the race 2 in first place with a 0.5 second gap between him and Jason, but not far behind we have Philip also trying to chase in on the action. And as you can see, Jason is still trying to claw ways back into fourth in the first place. And let's have a look at the other drivers on track. So we have in fourth, we have Christian driving in his new BMW Z4. As previously he was in the SLS for race 1, but his manufacturer must have kicked him out, and now he's driving for BMW. And not far behind him we have in the 5th position is Nick Swanson. And just crawling in the action behind him we have Chris Lowy and Mike. Oh, and that's just had a bit of a collision from Chris Lowy as he just came off the track from the Sunset Bend. Must have oversteered the question. And he must have overtook that corner too quickly and flew off the track from Chris Lowy just now. So that means that Mike is in 6th and Nathan taking up in 7th position. Okay, so the action back in 1st place is very, very tight between them. Jason has taken 1st place now with Charles towards him from behind. Let's have to take a back view of the action now. So there's very, very close between them. Oh, and Charles and Philip had a bit of a collision and bumped into him, but they will be ruling as a racing incident as the drivers were very, very, very sportsman spirit and gave the position as a sorry during the race. Yeah. So Jason has just extended his lead with a 0.7 seconds, but Philip is crawling away back towards him, and he could be inches away from 2nd place as they come towards the straight, and the McLaren is pulling away from the Porsche, and Philip is back into 2nd as they come towards the 1st corner, and Charles is able to outbrake him for the corner and get back his 2nd place, but no, Philip has defended and kept his 2nd place as Philip is aiming to get back into 1st. Oh, and Charles has taken back a 2nd. Very, very intense action from the 1st runners from 1 second to 3rd. So from 1st to 3rd we have less than a second gap between each other. And let's see, will Charles be able to catch up to Jason as they enter towards the final, back towards the final straight from the kink. And with the kink is a very famous corner in the 1965 where they took the fatality for Lotus for the driver Zuna Labrovivsk. And as Charles enters into the 1st corner and he heads towards Jason. Jason defending well as he's still leading the race on lap 10.
No ice.
Oh, and Philip is just fallen off the track just there, but he should be able to gain back the gap and close into 2nd place. Very, very intense action between them 3 at the moment as they enter back into the straight towards the 1st corner of the barbecue bend. And let's see if Charles outbreaks the McLaren in front as he crawls into the 1st corner, and no, Jason defended well by blocking him off and closing in the gap, closing the door on Charles as they head towards the Juski sweep, heading towards Sunset Bend, towards the as they come around the Sunset Bend towards Clubhouse, and Clubhouse Charles is still inches away from Jason. Oh, and Jason has spun now, just losing his traction in this car, and that means Charles has taken 1st place and Philip trying to Philip in 2nd. And that means Jason has fallen into 5th position due to that losing his traction and spinning out towards the Clubhouse bend. And we're back into the action towards the second and first, as Philip heading towards the barbecue bend. And as Philip is heading towards the Juski sweep, where Jason just moments ago lost his traction and spun out. Let's see if Charles does the same thing under pressure and loses his traction as they're heading towards the Sunset Bend, heading towards Clubhouse. And the fight between Philip and Charles is only 0.6 seconds apart. And now it's Christian heading into third, where Nick is fighting for it as well in fourth position. But this can all change as the pit window does open on the 35th minute of the race, and the drivers will have to have a mandatory pit. And Christian and Nick is heading towards the first corner, and let's see if Nick will be able to outbrake him, and he does, and he heads back into third position as they're battling towards the corner towards the barbecue bend. And Nick has extended his gap between him and Christian with a 0.4 seconds. Race 2 has proven to be a little bit more exciting than race 1, as there's a little bit more action as the front runners are battling it out for the positions. Currently in first we still have Charles with a 0.3 seconds gap between him and Philip. And also, and of course in third place we have Nick and Christian also battling it out for third position. And just not far behind them we have Jason, who was leading the race for the first 12 laps until he had a traction loss during the Sunset Bend and crashed out, and giving the lead to Charles. And now he's trying to crawl his way back up toward the front runners of the race. So let's have a look at the back of the grid. So we have 6th place Mike, also behind him we have Chris battling for the 6th position. So Chris is just very close to Mike at the moment as they're heading towards the Juski sweep. Let's have a look on Chris's onboard as he chases after Mike. Oh, and he just slipped out of the track as they were entering into the Sunset Bend towards the clubhouse. So that makes Mike a little bit longer on the extended with a 0.9 as I head towards the Lukup Bend. And as I was interviewing Nathan earlier, the Lukup Bend means Lion's Head, and has a very famous prison just behind there, and it's pretty cool to know that is called Lion's Bend. And the first and second drivers very close within each other, as Philip is only 0.3 seconds as he heading towards the initial trailer. See if we're able to outsmart him on the first corner. As the McLaren does have a better pickup and extra speed as the Porsche, but the Porsche does stick nicer as they come around the first corner. So Charles defends the position for himself as they come around, as they exit the first corner. And in third we have Nick, as must have missed the action there, but he must have gotten back his position, and Fighting Christian is in fourth. So have a look back at Christian as he pulls the sixth now with ahead of Mike, as earlier he was the one that won race 1. At the moment he is currently in 6th position for race 2. So we're already a few minutes from the pit window opening. All of the positions can change depending on the driver's pit strategy, as the pit window is open from 35th minute to the 25th minute of the race. And like earlier, Chris did hold on to the last minute to pit, so that what made him win the race, having a different pit strategy from everyone else. So currently in third we have Nick Swanson driving for BMW, and then Christian changing his car from earlier, so he was driving the SLS and now he's in the BMW Z4, same as Jason in fifth. Earlier he was driving the Porsche, now he's in the McLaren. Oh, and Jason just losing a bit of corner speed there, and he ended up on the thing, but now he's ending up on the curb, and now he's heading towards the straight as he's closing in onto Christian. As they head towards the Crowthorne corner bend. Let's see if Jason will close in the gap and get past him. Oh, and Jason does pass Christian and takes... Oh, and Christian just got it back. Very, very nice done, kept defending by Christian. Christian is neck and neck as they head towards Sunset Bend after passing through just sweep. And Jason trying to outbrake Christian as they head towards the S's, towards the scoop corner. Oh, and Jason spun out, and again, that's the second time during this race where Jason has spun now, and that means Christian has taken 5th position. And hearing the reaction during the race, it means that Jason was saying that Christian was driving too slow and caused him to spin out as he heads towards the straight. And Christian is still involved, and Chris Lowy has climbed himself up to 5th position now, 5th. And let's have a look at between Mike and Jason, as when Jason was coming back on the track, he had a little bit of collision with Mike, but luckily Jason gave back his position, so no actions will be taken. No actions will be taken. Okay, so as front runners, we still have in first place is Charles in the Porsche, and just behind them we have Philip with just a 0.5 second gap. And in third place we do have Nick trying to crawl his way back into second as well. Very intense action in the club at the moment, as all drivers are very focused and dialed into the simulation. As the round 4 of Kyalami, so we're here for the round 4 of Kyalami for the Sideways GT Series. Currently in the lead of the GT Series is Chris Lowy, so Chris Lowy is in 5th position currently as he tries to climb his way up. As the pit window just opened for the drivers, so the drivers will have to pit now as their fuel might run out, but as currently Chris is leading the championship with 98 points, and he should extend his lead as he did in race 1, but sadly unfortunately David can't make it for this race, so that means that Christian will take the second runner-up for the championship points, and that means David will fall in the third. Depending on what Mike finishes in this race, he might be able to take third place as well, depending on the position he gets. Let's take a look at back towards driver number 1, and we have Charles and Philip very close, within 0.3 seconds away from each other. So the action is very intense, so the pit window is open for the drivers, so they can change position any minute now. Depending on, let's see, their pit strategy, some of them will try and pull it out until the last minute. And the action is very intense between Jason and Mike as they pull in towards the straight, as they're 0.6 seconds away from each other. As they head towards the Crowthorne corner, and let's see if Jason will be able to outbrake him as he pulls in from the inside, and Mike defends the racing line and comes around the Crowthorne corner towards the barbecue bend. So the drivers only have 5 minutes left for the pit window. 5 minutes left for the pit window. As currently no one has pitted, I think. So most of the drivers are running low on fuel. And let's see if there's any position change. And the first one to pit is Mike, and Mike is currently in 7th position now. And Jason also pitted in 8th. So let's see who will be able to come out of the pit lane quicker. And as you see, Charles they're also pitting into lane, and Philip has taken the first position to extend his lead, and depending on what side he's planning to pit. So Mike and Jason are still coming out in the same position that they're in. Phillips is first. Nick is taken in second. Third place is Christian and Chris in fourth. Charles entered the pit. And Nathan also pulling into the pits currently. Michael's the first to pit for the drivers, so currently he's pitted. So currently we have first place Nick Swanson in first, and he's about to lap Nathan. And Christian is in second, but these two drivers still hasn't pitted as they have 3 minutes left of the pit window. 3 minutes left. Okay, so now currently in first place is still Nick Swanson. Second we have Christian, and third is Chris Lowry calling up from the back of the grid as he started at the back since it was a reverse grid. In fourth place now we have Charles, and in fifth we have Philip. But these two drivers have pitted as the front three has not pitted yet, so the drivers will have a change of position. And putting into the pits we have Chris Lowry getting his pit stop, and also ahead of him we have Chris Frick. And Nick has also requested a pit stop, so he will be putting into the pits in this lap as he heads around towards the sunset bend, towards towards the final straight. So now that means Christian and Charles swap positions, and Charles is into second and Philip into third. So there was a bit of a block from Chris Lowry and Christian as they were exiting the pits, as they were both exiting together, and they head towards the first corner for the two drivers. So now Nick is headed into the pits to get his just in time for the final pit stop window. Just in time for the final pit, and now let's see Charles, he heads towards the final. Will he be able to pass Nick just before he exits the pits, as Nick still has around 20 seconds on the timer as he heads towards the straight for Charles. And Charles has taken first place, and Philip also coming in through the final corner as he passes, and now he is in second and Nick taking third. And as Nick's heading out of pits, taking third place, and Christian is fighting for fourth and fifth. Earlier, Jason was leading the race with for the first 14 laps of the race, and now he's in 7th position due to 2 traction loss for him as he came around the sunset bend and losing his cool and falling over pressure and falling off the track. So now in first place we do have Charles with a 4.3 second lead, and in second is Philip. And holding his position in third place we do have Nick holding third and Chris in fourth. As previously in race 1 he was the one that won race 1, and he's the current leader in the GT Series Championship points with 98 points ahead, and he's also ahead by second place, which is David Weber, which David Weber has 75 points and is leading ahead of him with 20 points. But unfortunately David won't be able to make it to this race, so that means that Christian will be able to take second place during this race, and it depends on what Mike finishes off in this race to see if he'll be able to snatch up third and overtake David. Currently comfortably in first place we have Charles with a 5.9 second gap, so he is extending his lead with Philip in second. Okay, so currently in third place we have Nick Swanson. And let's have a look at the previous lap. Is Charles has moved at 1 minute 15.9, so that's the leader. And the previous race winner, Kyalami, is in 4th position at the moment. Christian in 5th. Christian currently is in 3rd position in the overall leader points in the championship. And he will take 2nd in this race as the 2nd runner at the moment, David, cannot make it to this race, so that means he'll lose out on points and Christian will take the 2nd place spot. And it just depends if David will keep 3rd, depending on what the Mike will get in this race position and overtake David in the championship. And the comfortably leader, we have Charles, 0.2 second gap, as he heads towards the Coral Thorn Bend, towards the barbecue corner. And as we enter the 16th minute of the race, all the drivers has pitted and their mandatory pit stops. As the drivers enter into their 33rd lap, with Charles leading the race with a 5.4 second lead, with Philip in 2nd. So unfortunately, the Mike is out of the race due to some technical issues, and he is out of the race. So that means in the championship points, he won't be able to get 3rd place and climb into the top runners for the drivers. So currently in 1st place we still have Charles, and Philip is just 5.5 seconds just behind Charles, and Nick is in 3rd. So let's take a look back at the leading runner, as Charles is still in first place with a 4.6 second gap between him and second. Philip in second. Here's McLaren, and third place we have Nick. And coming behind him is we have Chris. Chris earlier was the winner of race 1 and is the current leader in the championship points for the GT series. And Christian Frick is in 5th. And 6th place we have Jason, just spinning out on the corner, heading towards the sunset bend as he can't control the McLaren, as he's fighting away from him. Nathan is coming in 7th, and Joe in 8th, and unfortunately due to some technical difficulties for Mike, he's out of the race. And like any race series out there, if there's any malfunction with the cars, you cannot carry on with the race. And it's unfortunate for him, as he was running in with the points, as he could have been 3rd in the championship. That's because David can't make it to today's race, so that means he would have been 3rd in the championship points. And let's look back at the first runner with Charles. Sweet. So as let's head into the last 8 minutes of the race. They're very consistent with their lap times, and so it looks like Charles is in the 39th lap, leading the race with a 3.5 second lead gap. But Philip did make his fastest lap time during the race with a 1:15. But overall, in race 2, the current leader with the fastest lap time was Charles with a 1:15.517, just 100th of a second quicker than Philip with a 1:15.575. So let's see, will Philip be able to chase up to Charles and get back the lead? And as calling in 3rd place, we do have Nick. And previous race winner Chris Lowy is in 4th position currently. And in 5th, where Christian in 5th place. And in 6th, we have Jason. Previously, for the first 12 laps, he was the race leader, but proving challenging for him as he drives the McLaren and can't control it through the sunset bends as he loses most traction and the tire depletion, and losing out his car by oversteering into the corners. And in 7th, we do have Nathan Gunnett racing Ferrari, and in 8th we have Joe just falling behind a little bit. as the front runner Charles is heading towards the initial straight towards the Crowthorne men. We have Philip just behind him with 5 seconds. Just behind him is Philip Chan in McLaren. And in third we have Nick Swanson. As we head to the final few laps of the round 4 Kyalami for the GT series. In Kyalami, it's all sunshine and dry spells over here at Kyalami, and for you people around Hong Kong at the moment, be careful in the rain. As over here we've got the drivers driving on a dry track with track conditions 26 degrees and the track very hot, as the drivers are losing some debris on their tyres as they head for the final few laps of race 2, as Charles is leading now with a 6.3 second gap. And in third we have Nick trying to chase up to second place. Most of the action was at the beginning of the race, where the first and second were fighting places until Jason lost traction around the Sunset Bend and lost his tires and spun out, lost traction, and now he's fallen into 5th position during the race. And by the looks of it, with the 2 minutes left of the race, Chris Lowy in 4th place is losing out some of the fuel. Must have miscalculated during the pit stop. Mandatory pit stop during the pits windows are opening, and now he's running low on fuel, and it might have a bit of a position change between the drivers, depending if he can make it through to the final lap of the race. So the drivers are entering the last minute of the race. His drivers will be in their final laps as Charles is still in the lead with a 5.2 seconds lead on second place with Philip. And Chris Lowe is still trying to nurse his way through in 4th place as he's still running low on fuel, as he only has 2.5 liters left in his tank, so he should be able to make it through to the end of the race in 4th place, as previously earlier he won the race 1, but still extending his lead in the championship for the Sideways GT series. And the drivers are entering their final laps as Charles is taken on board with Charles as he enters the sunset bend towards the coupe corner. Let's have a look at sim number 8, as I think Joe has lost his tyres in the race. And I think Joe has lost his tyres in the race, so he might be out of the race for him. So Charles is entering the last final corner, heading towards the initial straight for him. And he's coming up to the finishing line, and Charles winner for race 2 for the round 4 of Kyalami Sideways GT series. And coming in second we have Philip, proving to have a spectacular finish for him, spinning off the track. And in 3rd place we have Nick Swanson, winning it for BMW. And that is round Kyalami for the Sideways GT series. Thank you everyone for watching, and please help to share and comment on the section below, and until next time, thank you everyone.